Screws loose, they done stripped the bolts on them. Shoulda never sent them to pick up the work for me. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in the rush, they was all goners. Tech cursive on the Jets, he was gonna charge on them.
Greetings, Shuttlings. Welcome to another episode of Chuddy's Corner. I'm your host, Dugouts. With me as always, King Chuddy. It's about 12:45 here on the East Coast. Technically Sunday morning, but we're going off Saturday night's 117-107 win for the Celtics. Chuddy, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. You also we're about to lose an hour too, so it's almost 1 o'clock. But by the time we're done, it's gonna be like 3 a.m. by the time we're done.
That's
gotta
a disaster. Love it. All right. Well, this West Coast road trip, we had this one penciled early on this season. We said this one was really going to test our mettle. So here we are, 3 games into it. 117-107 is the win. We're going to break it all down for you. Before we do that, make sure you're following the show on social media at Chuddy's Corner on all platforms. Whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, we're available on all of them. Make sure you're going ahead and subscribing, leave a review, hit the like button. Check out our YouTube page, hit subscribe on that as well. Also, special shout out to our sponsor, Nick Perino Real Estate. You can check him out at nickperino.com. He's got all your real estate needs in Massachusetts. I think we still don't know all the states he's in, but just assume that whatever state you're in, Nick can help you out. And if he can't, he'll find someone who can. He's that committed to the game, that committed to getting the deal done. But yeah, so we're going to break down the Celtics win over the Suns. Tatum 29, 10-7, Jalen 27, 3-3. Good night from both the Jays. I'll pass it over to you, Chuddy. Go ahead and give us the recap.
Mm-hmm. Well, before I get into the recap, let me just say, not only is our great sponsor, Nick Perino, committed to the real estate game, he is committed to the show, Chuddy's Corner. If you're watching or listening, you may notice incredible new quality we've got on the video, thanks to all the investments in technology that Nick has put into the show. So huge shout out to him for that. And not only that, he came over to the Chuddy Dome today, helped me get all of this stuff set up. So the great new studio, Chudio, whatever we're calling it, big thanks to Nick. So great sponsor and super producer, Nick Perino. Shouts out. Everybody check him out. He will not let you down. Anyway.
If you're watching mine and you're thinking my camera looks the same, it does. I couldn't figure out how to get the camera set up. I think Nick's coming over maybe tomorrow to help me with mine. But again, yeah, so he's committed to the real estate game, but also to the show. So just an extra special shout out to our sponsor,
exactly.
Nick Perino Real Estate, nickperino.com. Check them all out. But without any further ado, Chud, go ahead. It was a 117-107 win, 10-point win. I feel like it felt a little closer towards the end there. Felt a little closer kind of the whole game. Go ahead and give us your breakdown.
Yeah, I'd say felt a little closer, but at the same time, never felt super in doubt either. The Celtics came out, started pretty hot. It was kind of more of the same. That first quarter, Jaylen Brown, he came out uber aggressive, picked up really right where he left off, was attacking relentlessly. Honestly, I think he missed like 3 or 4 layups in the first quarter that just kind of rimmed out, or it seemed like the team in general, but I think mostly Jalen at least had 3 or 4 times where he kind of blew by his guy, rose up, and just rimmed out a bunny. Like he could have had a 20-point first quarter. It felt like he still had a really good quarter, was playing really well, was our lead attacker. Derrick and Drew, so much better. I think they had like a combined double-double in the first half. We were running a lot more offense through the 2 point guards. They were making some shots. They both just looked a lot more comfortable. They kind of both had like uncharacteristically poor showings in the Denver game. Both looked much better tonight. Again, Jalen picking up where he left off. No Porzingis tonight. We had Al filling in. Not like the loudest scoring night for Al, but unbelievable on the glass. He had 12 first half rebounds. This is most rebounds Al has had in a half since February of 2013. So over a decade since Al has had that kind of a rebounding half. He was incredible in this one too. And the bench, which also was a bit of an issue in the Denver game, only had 10 bench points against the Nuggets, 6 of those from Hauser. But tonight, totally different story. They had more points than that. I think they had 18 in the first half alone, finished with a lot more. Pritchard had some really good minutes tonight. You can tell the Nuggets, just a tough matchup for him. They got a lot of size. It's tough for him to play, but he looked right at home tonight, had no problem on a bunch of those Suns role players. Kornet, incredible game off the bench. He played really well, kept us in the game, was one of our best players at the time. I think he finished like 14 points, 6 rebounds, insanely efficient as usual. Had a few blocks and a large number of Kornet contests, eclipses as he called them.
He had so many Kornet contests.
Yeah, it was really an awesome game. Also, side note, national broadcast again on ABC. The fact that Kornet contest has just become like a national thing, that like Luke Kornet has his own signature move that's just like a household name across the country, not even just in Boston, is crazy. And good for Luke. Well deserved, but pretty funny. They're just so casually like mentioning that on the ABC broadcast like it's nothing. But so yeah, Celtics were playing well. One guy was not playing great again, Jayson Tatum. Quiet start to the game, like, you know, feeling the game out the same way that he has been for a while. So it's kind of funny because he's been doing this for a while and we've been really crediting him because the team had been playing so well. And we're like, look at Tatum, you know, waiting his turn, not forcing anything. Yeah. But it just felt like after last game, like we all kind of expected him to come out aggressively and almost make like a statement and come out with a huge half, score 40 points, whatever. Not the case. Only had 7 points in the first half. Again, was kind of struggling from the field.
Second quarter.
Yeah, exactly. But again, the team was playing pretty well, so it didn't have a ton of complaints. The team seemed very locked in on defense. You could see some extra intensity against a good team. No Devin Booker for the Suns, but Kevin Durant was amazing. That guy, you wouldn't know that he's 35 years old because he looks absolutely incredible. And on nights like tonight, it's truly special to watch, where it just seemed like you expected him to make every single shot, no matter how contested. Celtics tried a bunch of different matchups on him. It seemed like both of the Jays were guarding him. Drew was guarding him. Derrick was guarding him. Al ended up switched on to him a lot, and it just didn't matter. I didn't think anyone played particularly like poorly on him. You give that guy an inch of space, insanely contested, does not matter. So amazing Durant game. Bradley Beal got it going. He played pretty well too, but you could really see that beyond their stars, the Suns just do not have a lot of firepower. I mean, those guys scored a vast majority of their points tonight. Yusuf Nurkic gave them some decent minutes, but Eric Gordon could not get it going at all. Grayson Allen really could not get it going at all. Royce O'Neal, my God, he could not make a shot to save his life. So tough night for a lot of the Suns role players, but they did hang around again, largely due to just the brilliance and the incredible shot making of Durant. There's a little bit of testiness and like almost chippiness in the first half, more so with the refs than between the two teams. It seemed like Jaylen and Jayson especially were just getting hammered on calls, not getting the call. It kind of boiled over when Beal clearly hit Brown's elbow on a three-pointer. No call. Brown was chewing the ref out, came down, came right back down the next possession and finished through contact. Again, no call. Looked like it could have been an and one. Yeah. He immediately got teed up and taken out of the game. I think he had like 15 points at that time, but his chili was running hot, as they say. He was pissed, but there was a couple calls. Nurkic was getting pissed. Like it wasn't like an egregiously bad one way or the other, but both teams just seemed like really pissed at the refs. And then they just
fed up with those.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But then it seemed like after that, the refs just like stopped calling anything. The game got insanely physical, which I didn't hate because it was consistent, I thought, on both sides, but they were just letting a ton go. And it was getting scrappy. Again, you know, not to the extent of the Denver game, but it did feel like playoff atmosphere-ish. Like the intensity was super high, I thought, on both sides. A very defensive game all around. You could tell that the Celtics were really committed to the defense. And again, if not for Durant just shooting the lights out, I think we could have held them to like 85, 90 points. So I thought the defense was really good. The Celtics, you could tell a little effort and some of those hustle plays, and they're getting a lot of offensive rebounds, which is great to see. Took, what was it, maybe a 12-point lead, I think, into the half. It got as high as 15. They hit a three towards the end, cut it to 12. Tatum finally hit a three at the end of that quarter, which was one of those rare 2-for-1 ones where you kind of hate the shot, but he made the three, which was one of the only ones he made, so that was nice. Came into the second half, and it was, you know, a lot of the same, but the Suns made a few runs a couple times. They got it close, and then the Celtics would just hold them off. They led every second of the final three quarters in this one, which is nice to see. And when the Suns made their runs, I thought Mazzulla did a good job of calling timeouts, settling things down, and coming out and pushing the lead back up. The Suns hit a couple threes. Again, it was Durant. I think Durant and Beal each hit one. And then Nurkic had a putback. They got the lead all the way down to 3 at one point. Call timeout. The Celtics came right out of that, pushed it right back to 8, 10, 12 points with some nice shot making. Tatum seemingly couldn't do much right except making threes. I think at one point he was like 5 of 9 on threes, but like 8 of 23 shooting overall. So very weird game for Tatum. It really was just the 3 going and nothing else was looking that great.
Yeah, 11 for 28 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3.
Yeah, so that's like, I feel like usually the opposite, if anything. It's like he'll have great shooting stats, but like 1 of 7 on threes. Tonight it was, the threes were falling pretty well, but not much else. And again, just uncharacteristic turnovers. They were really clean with the ball in the first half, but in the third quarter, they kind of let the Suns climb back in it with the turnovers. They got super sloppy with the ball, just some bad passes left and right. It was very frustrating. And then the Suns were just started hitting some shots, capitalizing. But again, good timeouts by Joe, and kept pushing the lead back up, got into the fourth. And again, it seemed like the Celtics were kind of pulling away, but the Suns cut it down to, I think, 5, got it to like 107, 102 with 3.5 minutes left. Became a really tight game, another timeout. And then the Celtics came out and closed the door, finished the game on a 10-5 run. I think the Suns made a free throw at the end, so it was really a 10-4 run, and just played really well on both ends out of that timeout, stepped the defense up even another level, and executed, I thought, some really nice crunch time offense, starting with right out of the timeout. They got a great post-up look for Jaylen. He got into a nice mid-range, drew a foul. Unfortunately, missed 2 free throws, which would have been probably a larger talking point of this game if they didn't clean things up from there.
Jaylen was 4 for 7 from the free throw line.
Yeah, and the 2 big misses there in crunch time. So, yeah, then the Suns had the ball down 5, but we got the stop. And then possibly the biggest possession of the game, Tatum hit Holiday on the short roll, looked like Holiday had a layup, defense collapsed. He kicked it out to Al, who was, I think, 0 of 6 at the time on threes. Again, Al had a great game, but one of the only things he wasn't doing was making those shots. He hit that wide open corner 3, which was probably the biggest shot of the game, pushed it back out to an 8-point lead. Celtics got another stop, and then the next time, Tatum just took it on himself to get into KD's, blew by him, finished hard for a layup, pushed the lead up to 10, and that was really all she wrote. So, the Celtics, a few moments where it seemed like they weren't playing their best, let the Suns back in it. But at the end of the day, we got ourselves a nice crunch time 5-point game with 3.5 minutes left on the road against a good team with a superstar who was playing out of his mind. And the Celtics stepped it up and executed on both ends and pulled out this win. Like I said, going on a 10-4 run in the final 3 minutes to close it out, I feel like is exactly what you want to see after those last 2 losses. So all in all, I think you have to feel pretty good about this win.
Yeah, I mean, well, I definitely feel a lot better about it than if it went the other way, just with the situation that we're in. But yeah, this one did feel like it felt like, again, the Suns aren't like loaded on every level, but I mean, you had Durant, and it is crazy thinking about Durant as like, you're almost like turning back the clock with Durant. It still feels like he's like a young player in the league, but he's 35. But he had 45 points, and like he was doing everything he could, and I feel like lately we've done pretty well against Durant, but he just was like unstoppable. So again,
and like I said, I don't even think we did a bad job on him. Like good contests, he just wasn't missing. 45 points on 18 of 26 shooting. It's like so absurd.
It's very good stat. It's a very good stat line.
Ridiculous efficiency.
But again, I think it's definitely like you feel good that it wasn't. I think if this was a game where it was just like a wire to wire 25-point blowout, obviously that's fun, that's great. But I do think to what you said, it's nice to have a game that did get close. I guess it never really felt like we were losing it, but like you said, it got really close in the fourth, got really close in the third. The Suns kept on making runs, and we kept sort of responding to it. So, I mean, you definitely feel good about the game. They needed a win. I think like this, it was sort of the perfect way to win after what happened. Right. We can get into a little bit later about. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the other teams that had some pretty brutal losses, but didn't get the negative recognition the Celtics got. But yeah, I think this was a good win. I think we're kind of a little bit back to that, like taking care of business mind state. I think, we can kind of get into whether or not we think that like Tatum's night, he ends up with 29 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. Like you look at that and think it was a really good night, but it wasn't, I don't know what to make of that night, because it did feel like for the whole first half, it was sort of like, what is going on? Like, genuine concern, but then he did sort of turn it on, and especially in the fourth quarter, I think he kind of really nailed it in. But 11 for 28, we mentioned, that seems like a lot of shots. So, I mean, I don't know. Is this just kind of a situation where you're thinking like, are we just almost like bored of the regular season? Like, I don't know, like I don't really know what's going on. Like,
I think it's hard to say that.
You can't look at the way he played and what he finished with and how he played late in the game. It was all great, but. And again, the defense, like you said, was better too. Obviously, the rebounding, we talked about how rebounding is like a sign of like, I think his effort level. But I don't know. It just seemed like when I look when I looked at his stats at the end of the game, I was kind of stunned that he had that many points because it felt like I just saw him miss so many shots.
Yeah, well, I think he, again, started slow. I thought, again, he had a lot of uncharacteristic turnovers. He had that one stretch where he had 2 passes in a row that were just like, one of them was like 3 feet wide of White and just went out of bounds. And the next one, he kind of drove left and tried to like swing it to the opposite corner. And I think it went like 12 rows into the stands. It was like one of the worst passes I've ever seen him make. So that was when I was like, is something like wrong with Tatum? And then there was a couple times they showed him on the bench and the trainer was like checking on his wrist or something too. So I'm like, all right, what the hell's going on? But then, like you said, he kind of righted the ship, made all the right plays during crunch time. 5 of 9 on threes. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And a few of those were some really big like pull-up threes when the team needed them, which was nice. And then again, he had that huge driving layup, which really was kind of like the exclamation point on the win. And I think he had even a dunk right after that to like officially seal it. So yeah, he scored 22 points in the second half. I think he had 13 in the fourth quarter. He didn't come out of the game either. He played all 24 minutes of the second half. And after the game, he said that he asked Joe, he told him, he's like, I want to stay in. So when you say bored of the regular season, I definitely don't think it's that. I think extra motivated.
That definitely kind of destroys that thought. Yeah.
Well, and I think that he definitely there's like a little extra for whatever reason when he plays against Durant. You can like always count on he just kind of gets up for that game. So this one, unlike the Nuggets game where, like you said, he was almost like disinterested, passive, and weirdly uninvolved. Tonight, it felt like he was just genuinely like kind of stinking it up and just missing a ton of shots, especially around the rim in the first half. I think at one point he was like 5 of 16 shooting. And it felt like a lot of those were like close mid-range shots that are usually almost automatic for him, or just like even point-blank layups. Like we said, I mean, take away the threes and it was like an awful shooting game from like very makeable shots for him. So whereas with the Nuggets game, it was almost like a different kind of concern. Tonight, it was like, felt like he just had a bad shooting night. A few more of those shots that he usually makes go in, and he probably is ending up with like 38, 10, and 7 on a pretty nice shooting night. And we're like, wow, that was an awesome game. Instead, he just has some weird turnovers, misses a ton of shots. And even on his post-game interview on the court, which, you know, all the Celtics haters and Tatum haters are going to be using this quote forever because he handed it right to him on a platter. But he said, I'm very thankful that I have such good teammates because I stunk it up tonight, was Tatum's quote. So it's almost like he's intentionally like feeding the trolls on that one. Yeah. And you know you're going to see that quote all over Twitter, I'm sure. But I think it just goes to show that his mind's in the right place and he doesn't care because, you know, his teammates were awesome. So his final stats look good. And like I said, I like all the stuff that he's, you know, he played some big defensive possessions for sure on Beal, on Durant most of the night. He battled for those 10 rebounds and he did make some big shots and made some clutch plays down the stretch to seal it. So again, I think some weird, uncharacteristic stretches of not his best play, but nothing that he won't shake off. And at the end of the day, when a guy puts up 29, 10, and 7 in a road win, and we're wondering like what's wrong with him, that's probably a sign he's a pretty good player.
Well, and like you're saying, like this was sort of more like we talked about on the last podcast after the Nuggets game, where it's like I can live with him just like missing a bunch of shots and having a bad game that way. So it definitely did seem like the effort was more there. I guess I kind of just was surprised when the game was over and I looked and he has 29 points. Yeah. I'm like, holy fuck. Because at halftime he had 7, he didn't score at all in the second quarter. But yeah, I mean,
13 in the fourth.
We would definitely be exactly. And I had said before, I texted somebody and been like, all right, here, like give us a good fourth quarter to kind of like just sort of to shut up all the kind of chatter that's been happening. Yes. And I think he kind of delivered on that. And when it came down to it, I mean, they finished with a 10-point win. Tatum has almost 30 points. So it is a little bit, we'd be a little bit spoiled to be sitting here being like, oh my God, that was terrible. But at least I can live with a bad shooting night, which I think tonight was for the most part. Like there was some freaking bunnies that they were all missing.
Yeah. Especially in the first half.
Yeah.
And also the thing is, so much is made over crunch time and clutch stats and this, that, the other. And it's like, clutch play and clutch stats can look very different and like a lot of different ways. And like, yes, tonight, nobody's going to be talking about like, oh, what a clutch game by the Celtics and by Tatum because, it didn't come down to a buzzer beater. Where it's like, if the Celtics had actually executed worse down the stretch and let the Suns get all the way back into it to the point where we had to make a winning shot and had won it that way, people would be like more impressed and think this was a better performance. Where in fact, I think it's like an almost better version of clutchness that we never let it get to that point. Like even when things were going bad and the Suns had all the momentum and were making all the shots, we kept stopping their run and never let them get closer than 3 by just executing. But like stretching that lead out from 3 to 10, from 5 to 10 in the final minutes of the game is amazingly clutch. And like, that's another way to win clutch games. Like any game that's under 5 minutes, I think, and within 5 points counts as a clutch game. So tonight was, so that'll go in the win column as like a clutch win. Yeah. But it's like, people don't care unless unless Tatum hits a buzzer beater, like they don't care. But it's like stretching the lead out and closing the game out like that and outperforming Durant, who was the hottest player on the planet at that point, but like locking him down in the final few possessions and us executing good offense and scoring is another version. Like it's still clutch. It all counts the same clutch. You know, it won't be the number 1 play on SportsCenter, but like a clutch win is a clutch win. That's what the team needed, and that's what I want to see.
You were saying it's like if we had like blown that lead and he came down to a last shot and he hit it, people would be saying that Tatum had like a way bet. So it is kind of funny. Yeah, it is. It's sort of funny how that works out, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
sure.
it was definitely good that we kind of had a win down the stretch and where it did get a little bit chippy and we pulled it out.
For sure.
I do want to give a shout out to, so we talked about Tatum, obviously we talked a little bit about Brown. I think again, kind of going back to Luke Kornet, like anytime anyone comes like near his minutes, like he didn't play at all against the Nuggets. Tillman played a good amount, and then he gets a good chance today to play. And it's just like, again, he's like a dog that doesn't like share its toy. He's just like I am not getting in a situation where when the playoffs come around, we're questioning who the minutes belong to. And Luke defensively played really well too, but the offensive, I mean, he was 6 of 7 from the field, 14 points, 6 rebounds.
And I think the one miss he tipped back in too.
Yeah, he was like he almost was like the Aaron Gordon role that Nuggets had. Like, he was just alley-ooping like everything. It's so funny.
He set a career high with 5 dunks.
Okay, so 6 of his. So the other one was the putback. You're saying, so everything else was just
5 dunks and a tap in.
They were just feeding it up to him. So that was that was awesome to see. I think that
it was.
You know, I don't want to. There's other players we can definitely talk about, but I think that Luke deserves sort of a little moment for himself there.
Well, and another guy who just knows exactly what to do. He's setting great screens on like not the best Suns defenders, and for a while, you know, some of our best offense tonight. Like Durant, also as amazing as he is on offense, he's still their best defender and one of the best defenders in the league. And that was part of it too, is he was doing an awesome job guarding Tatum. And the Celtics were fine with that because a lot of the Suns defenders aren't that great. We're going at Eric Gordon relentlessly, going at Grayson Allen a lot. You know, Nurkic, depending on who he's matched up in, if he's getting away from the paint, going at him. When Eubanks was in, definitely going at him, going at Bol. Basically all those guys. And a lot of that was Derrick White and Drew Holiday setting things up, going around good screens by Al and by Luke. And the Suns were just basically forced into that drop, and it seemed like they were just waiting, and White was just waiting for the second defender to commit, and then basically throwing the alley-oop to Kornet or Al over and over again, and that was like unstoppable. And in fact, I think one of my biggest issues, if anything, with the Celtics was how uninvolved Derrick was down the stretch, especially when the game was getting tight. It was like we were, you know, kept having things running through Tatum and Brown, which is good. Like we weren't getting bad shots, but it's like, why aren't we running more offense through Derrick White here? They finally did, and he got us into something good. Well, just as someone who wanted the Celtics to win, I was thinking that as the
win too, but once it seemed like we were going to win.
No, as the lead was slipping away, it was just one of those things where it was like, all right, why don't we have White getting the Jays the ball in better positions, or you know, setting things up? Where I feel like this year we have been so good about that, but tonight it seemed like we were just almost insistent on. It was like there was some after effect from the last 2 games where it's like, no, like the Jays need to prove they can come through down the clutch. And like they did, but it felt like we almost made it a little harder on ourselves than it needed to be, where it was like, let's just keep Derrick involved, keep Drew involved. Derrick went way too long in the fourth quarter, I thought, without a touch. And then when they did involve Drew in that offense and ran the little screen and roll with him and Tatum, he got it to Al for the wide open 3. That was the biggest shot of the game. So I think just a good reminder that no matter, even if the Jays have it going and are playing well, and I don't, you know, it isn't even really like a knock on them, but just, again, we want to be running our offense through Derrick White as much as possible. And, you know, especially when things aren't going well, the ball can't go away from him. So I think that was, if there's anything to take away here, it's, you know, keep Derrick running the offense. He's the point guard.
Do you think there's anything to like the idea that they're just like trying out things, or is it just...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that.
It doesn't feel like they're testing anything because we sort of know what that is, but
yeah,
like just the way their offense just seems like a little bit different than it's been all year, the last few games. So I just I don't know if this is like an attempt to try stuff or what.
And I don't think they were like running bad offense or getting bad looks. And I thought they were basically trying to do like that side pick and roll that JJ Redick mentioned on the broadcast, where they're trying to get Tatum onto Eric Gordon and basically get him in a mismatch and play out of that. And they were doing a good job of that again and getting good looks, just not hitting them and stuff and taking a little bit of time and things just going a little bit cold for a little bit too long there. But I don't think it's anything like crazy they're trying. I did think it was another interesting twist here where we've mentioned how Joe is definitely like mixing up the lineups and the rotations, whereas tonight I think we entered the fourth quarter with like a 9-point lead maybe, and you knew that Durant was going to take his quick rest right at the start of the fourth, and usually that's where the Celtics will rest Tatum too, but again, Tatum played the whole game, so he started the fourth quarter with both Jays and White on the floor, which I think with Pritchard and Kornet I want to say, but again, it's just like lately it's been switching around all kinds of stuff, definitely trying different things there. So I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. But in terms of the offense down the stretch, I didn't think it was like anything crazy they were trying to do differently. I thought they just liked the matchup where they could get Tatum matched up with either Grayson Allen or Eric Gordon. And eventually that did prevail and got us the offense we needed. I thought we just could have kept doing a lot more of what we were doing when we were having Derrick White and Drew Holiday involved, who again, I think it combined for like 13 assists in the first half. So they were just picking them apart. So I think we maybe just need to be a little more careful about what we're doing. I also thought that the Suns, Frank Vogel made a nice adjustment when he did take Nurkic out of the game, and they were basically playing with like Durant as their center, which again, I mean, they were probably more able to do considering we didn't have Porzingis tonight. Al isn't going to like eat you alive in the post the way that Porzingis would. So they were able to play with basically Durant and like 4 shooters around him. And I thought that kind of, I don't want to say bothered the Celtics, but it made us almost like forget what to do on offense. I think it took us like a little bit to adjust to that. So nothing crazy again. And we're kind of just like nitpicking here in a game that overall was pretty good. But I think, when we do come down to the playoffs against the best of the best, like we can't afford to be even, a possession late to adjust to things like that. So just a couple things to take away.
I mean, all right, I don't have like a whole lot else. I know we have a couple of voicemails that we want to get to, but I don't know if you have anything else like specifically about the game that you want to get into or not.
I want to shout out again Peyton Pritchard. I think we mentioned him briefly, but I thought he was really, really good tonight.
I feel like he's been getting a lot more of those like kind of late minutes. Like it used to be him and Hauser out there at the same time. I think there's been a lot more of like just him out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, he earned it. And again, I think it's kind of like a matchup thing where I think in that Nuggets game, he just honestly like looked too small. And that's, I think that's going to be the thing in the playoffs. It's I forget if it was Phil Jackson or one of the old coaches. No, it might've been Pat Riley who said like in the playoffs, you play 8 and trust 7. And I feel like that's kind of like where the Celtics are at, where it's like, we've got our 6 and like Hauser's probably our 7th just cause he's like big, can play T and shoot. So like, you're always going to trust them. And then the 8th is like, maybe some days it'll be Kornet, some days it'll be Pritchard, some days it'll be Tillman, and that's going to be like, you don't feel amazing about it, but you just hope that like one of those guys at least can do what needs to be done. So I think, this was a good matchup for Pritchard. And again, we mentioned he made Eric Gordon look like a friggin' traffic cone on a couple of occasions out there. Great Pritchard minutes. I thought he had good job of getting to the basket, played hard on defense, great energy, great offensive rebounding as he always does, and had a couple nice steals too. So was loving the minutes that he gave us there. Good to see. And then again, now you get Tillman, who's relegated back to the bench. I think a lot of that stuff is matchup too, where I think the like playing against a guy like Jokic, they probably don't love like Kornet, and they want someone like Tillman who's a little maybe stronger, fleet-footed, can move around a little better. So I think a lot of it, again, is Joe still getting used to the personnel and, just wants to be able to figure out exactly what are his best matchups.
That's kind of what Kornet and Tillman will be like moving forward. Like it's not a matter of like who's going to outplay the other for the spot. It's going to kind of just be a totally matchup dependent thing.
I do, especially in the playoffs, because like I said, the rotations and the lineups are all going to get shortened so much. Like we're not going to be playing. If everyone's healthy, we're not going to be playing Porzingis, Al, Luke, and Tillman.
No, definitely not that. I'm just saying. Will there be like one series where it's like Tillman's playing a shot?
I think so.
Next, like, okay.
I think it'll be pretty much matchup based. And I mean, it might even change, throughout a series depending on how things are going or what we want to try. And you can always zig when it seems like zagging is the move, like this and that or whatever. So I don't think it'll always be super predictable, but I think he'll kind of ride with whichever one he thinks has the better matchup for a particular opponent, and kind of go from there.
All right. Yeah. Should be fun to see. Again, we're all just itching for just like grinding through the last stretch here.
The only other thing too on this game that was kind of frustrating me was I was waiting for them to just make the switch and have Tatum guarding Durant full time. It seemed like Durant was killing us. And again, like I mentioned, it wasn't like anyone did anything wrong. And I thought Drew obviously is a great defender, but at a certain point I was like, Durant is just shooting over him. Like as good as Drew is, Durant's got to have 5-6 inches on him. And I was like, Drew's right in his grill, but it's like, it doesn't even matter. He's just shooting over him every time. Same with like, and then Drew kept giving up the switch to Al. And it was like, same thing for the most part. It was like, Al's staying right on him, but Durant can get like 1 inch of separation. And that's all he needs. So I was waiting for like, all right, when he came in back in the fourth quarter with like 8 minutes left and we were up by 10, that's where I was like, this is the time now where I want to see just put Tatum on him and Tatum just fight through every screen and just make anyone else beat us. And, like he was on him some, but I just thought there wasn't maybe as much of that as I would have liked. And again, I don't know if it was like, and credit to Drew because he did stop Durant on like the last 2 minutes, but still that was one thing where I was like, all right, I feel like this has kind of been the move. And especially historically in that matchup, obviously we saw the playoff series a few years ago when Durant was on the Nets and Tatum completely shut him down, like as well as anyone has guarded him. So I thought that was kind of like, we were just keeping that one in the bag and then would go to it in the fourth quarter. And, we never really did consistently. Like I said, he ended up on him on a few possessions. He had one nice steal when Durant first came back in, but we were still, for the most part, closing with Drew on Durant, and we were like pretty happy to give up that switch. Also, shout out to Jaylen Brown. Amazing play that also helped seal the game in crunch time with 2 minutes left. When White was on Durant, he tried to fight through a double screen, and I don't know how he and Jaylen were able to communicate that switch, but Jaylen came from two guys away to like hedge over the pass, immediately close out on Durant, would actually poke the ball away, and it went off Durant's hand or hip out of bounds. Celtics challenged and got the ball. Awesome challenge too. And that, as well as the offensive play we mentioned, that was like the biggest clutch defensive play that kind of sealed the game. That was with like a minute and a half left, and I think we were up by 8, got the steal on that. And again, just such an asset. I think Matt Reynolds is the assistant coach who they've nicknamed the Green Lantern for how good he is at challenging. That's like his only job. That's Johnny awesome on the spot on that one. So I don't know if that was like full credit to him for seeing that, or if they were just like, there's a minute and a half left. It's close. Like we might as well. But I'm going to assume that he has eagle eyes and was locked in, because awesome challenge that kind of like won us the game. Like when we won that, I was kind of like, oh, all right, well, that's pretty much game. And you look conversely, the play that the Suns wasted their challenge on, awful challenge. Just like Nurkic went up for a rebound that Brown had, blatantly slapped him on the arm, and Nurkic is immediately like giving the signal to the coach, like, oh, you got to challenge that. The coaches who listen to the players are so dumb, and Fred Hogel's like, yep, challenge. Yeah, exactly. And they show the replay once, and you're like, you're never going to win that challenge. And then they could have used it later in the game, didn't have it. So just, something that seems small, but I think especially in the playoff games on the margins, the use of those challenges is going to be so huge. We talked about it a lot earlier in the year, like how important that is. And pretty happy with the way that the Celtics have been using their challenges for the most part. And it was on full display tonight.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that when some of the players like quickly go to that, like it's like, that
they do it like every time.
See a replay, so it's like you better be sure.
Right. There's another one too at the end of the game. It was actually when Jaylen got fouled by Beal on the 3, and the Suns, they didn't have their challenge because of that other stupid one. But Beal was immediately telling the coaches to challenge, and I was like, he drilled Brown, and like Brown completely landed on him. Like it couldn't have been more obvious of a foul, and Beal is still yelling at them to challenge it. It's like, why would you want to? That like he landed on you completely. Like I don't know. It's just bizarre. Like he said, these players know that they're gonna look at slow motion replay. I don't know.
Well, I'm glad we have our Green Lantern though. I love that nickname. I never heard that nickname. All right, we have a couple.
And then one other thing on the broadcast. Kornet in his post game, because they've waffled between the nicknames the Kornet contest and the Eclipse. He had liked to call it the Eclipse, right, for the closeout. So Abby asked him after the game about like the Kornet contest, and he said, he's like, hey, the point of the Eclipse is to block the sun, or something like that. So it's just a great line after tonight's game went over the Suns. Great stuff. So just great night on and off the court for Luke. So really happy for him.
Yeah, I love Kornet. Love what he's doing. Love his sense of humor too. The guy is actually hysterical.
Definitely.
So are we officially a
I think we're
podcast?
I don't know. Might have to go game by game, opponent by opponent.
I
See
feel
what
like there's
see
a
what the
lot more,
puns
like,
are.
memes I can make with an eclipse, but I feel like there's a lot to work with there. But we'll see. We'll see what bubbles
Good
up.
potential, definitely.
All right, so we have a couple voicemails. The first one was left, I think it's after the Nuggets game. So we obviously did the show for that one. But this is I think it's just another person calling in. They didn't give a name, so I'll just play the voicemail. And we can just kind of discuss it afterwards.
The only thing that this game proves is that the NBA needs this as a finals matchup. This game is awesome. I hate the stigma that, losing to a team twice in the regular season is like doomsday for your finals or playoff matchup. If the game is close, one big win in a playoff game will change the series and erase everything that happened in the regular season. So, great game. Happy to have Porzingis. He's an obvious star that we are lucky to have. And then Jaylen Brown is balling right now. I hope that he can keep this up and take this into the playoffs. And, Jayson Tatum will get his. I know that people give him shit for this game, but we all know he'll get his.
I don't know if you had another thought on Tatum. It got like a little cut off there. We had to add more than a minute for the voicemails. I don't know.
Perhaps.
I think. I mean, I kind of agree with pretty much.
Yeah.
Well,
so again, just to reiterate,
Chuddy head.
Obviously, that call was referring to the Nuggets game the other night, not the Suns game. If you didn't catch that. Well, first, I'd say nice to get a call from a level-headed fan who isn't acting like the sky is falling after a loss. That's pretty refreshing. So shouts out to that caller. Nice to hear a voice of reason. And yeah, he's right. Great basketball game, great regular season game. And absolutely, once the playoffs start, nobody's talking about regular season records. Like, go back and look at the finals from the last however many years. Has there ever been like a recent playoff matchup where you can remember what happened in the regular season? Like you said, I mean, if it becomes indicative, if we make the finals and get swept by the Nuggets, then maybe we'll look back and be like, yeah, they had our number. But I don't think like there's anything from these two games we played against them that should lead you to believe that. So absolutely agree. And I think it was one of the last few years when we played Philly, I think they swept the season series against us. I don't think it was last year, but it was one of the other ones. Maybe it was even the confetti year or the bubble year. I don't remember, but there was one year where they almost, I think, swept us in the bubble. And like all of them were like, oh, we finally figured out, we got their number, and then we 4-1 them or swept them in the playoffs. So and then nobody talked about the regular season anymore again after that. So yeah, I think totally true. Two close games that hopefully we learned a lot from and will get us prepared for the playoffs. Definitely agree about Porzingis, although he obviously didn't play tonight, but that's fine. And then the Jaylen Brown balling, continued that tonight, more balling, and even more than like the way he's balling. It seems like he has like a real edge to him, which I love. He even his press conference after the game tonight seemed like he was like pissed off, dejected. He seemed really upset by the Cavs loss and the Nuggets loss. It seemed like he came out and played like personally. You could see obviously he got that technical in the first quarter. He was pissed at the refs. And again, he missed a few layups, but the aggression that he's playing with, again, if he gets a matchup on him that is someone he doesn't think can guard him, he's going right by them or even like right through them and over them. The way he plays, again, he's like playing like he's a big man in the post sometimes against some of these players. And it was like almost everyone on the Suns got a taste tonight of like, you are just not big, athletic, and strong enough to stay with Brown. And he senses that, and he just like goes for the jugular, and he's so relentless. And it's so nice to have that, like he said, where we know Tatum's going to get his, but when Brown's going off like that too, it's like, whew, good luck. So yeah, awesome to see that, and I hope he continues with this like kind of little edge he has. Even after the Nuggets game too, in his press conference, he was saying he's like, I should have guarded like Jokic more. So not sure I agree, but I like the attitude.
Some of the stuff he said there was almost just like I feel like he was kind of like subtly sort of calling some people out. I don't know.
Well, and he was the same way after the Cavs game too. I don't know if you heard him. He was the one guy after the Cavs loss who was like, he's like, no, like there's no excuses, there's no looking ahead. He's like, this is bad, and like we have to fix this. It's like every game matters, and this is like a shitty loss. So it's just like good to hear him bringing that like edge, and that's what you want, like some toughness, some leadership. We've mentioned how he's taken on like being the leader of the dog pack, and you really feel it on the court. Like he is playing like a dog and acting like a dog, and it's nice to see him be pissed
that,
off even after wins. Is I'm cool with that. So
that voicemail pretty much like captured that was I think before we recorded, but that was pretty much like what I felt about. So shout out to that nameless Chuddy head. Feel free to call back anytime. We love a good, nice, level-headed take here.
definitely.
The next one we had, this was mid-game tonight. This is Joe on the North Shore. So we got one more voicemail for you. I'll play this one now.
What's up, Chudlings? Joe, North Shore, first time, long time. Midway through the third, a lot of game left. Just want to shout out Derrick White's incredible behind-the-back block. Guy just continues to be a stud. And then Al, just being super special for us, always. Would love to pull this one out. Big road win after a couple tough ones. We'll see. All right, Chudlings, looking forward to the cast later.
Yeah,
All right.
great call. Thank
Joe
you
on the
too.
North Shore, thanks.
Thanks for the call. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, one, we did pull the game out, so thankfully that would have been if we didn't. The Derrick White, that block was, like, again, we talked a little bit about the offense. He seems a little bit out of that, but just the impact he can make on the other side of the floor is just continues to be just crazy, especially for a guy at his size.
And the block specifically that he's referring to, if you missed it or you're not totally sure, it was a fast break for the Suns. Royce O'Neal going up for the layup, and Derrick almost kind of like mistimed his jump. He was trying to like come across his body, and O'Neal almost kind of took like an extra Euro step to steady himself, and it seemed like White was going to jump like away from it. And as Joe kind of described, White almost like turned his body in midair, reached back, and somehow like tipped the ball as O'Neal was kind of gathering and starting to go up for the finger roll. So like just an incredible athletic feat by White. Again, his like
he's had a
timing
where he goes up to block with the right and then blocks with the left because the situation just changes on him. It's crazy.
This might have been the most impressive one. It was the play of the game on the NBC post-game show, and just an incredible play. And he's just has such a knack for the ball and his timing. Again, he's so much smaller than all these guys, and again, it's not like he has some like 45-inch vertical or anything like that. But again, his instincts and his knack for the ball are just second to none. Like honestly, in the entire league, at least for guards. And again, I've mentioned it before, but JJ, I thought great national broadcast, and he did a great job tonight of saying like of all the things Derrick White does that everyone talks about and that show up, just his ability to actually be a rim protector. And he had a couple other plays around the rim where I'm not sure he got credited for a block and you couldn't tell if he made contact, but just his timing to go up and contest guys who are bigger than him at the rim definitely prevented baskets. So it's crazy to say about a small point guard, but he really is like an elite rim protector, not just for his size, just in general. And that block, good for Derrick to have like a highlight reel type of play on that one. If you haven't seen it, go post it. We'll get the intern to make sure he posts that block because that was a really special play. And also funny that the call was midway through the game, and Joe shouted out Al, who was rebounding the hell out of the ball, but again, finished the game strong. He had a huge dunk at one point and then hit the big three, the clutch three, arguably the biggest shot of the game to close it out. So 100% agree with Joe on the North Shore. Horford continues to be awesome.
He was just being...
6 in the first and 6 in the second. He had 12 at halftime, which is absolutely crazy.
He's awesome.
Again, just a luxury of you don't have your your starting center when one of the best players in the league, Kristaps Porzingis. Okay, fine, we'll just bring in this future Hall of Famer off the bench who's gonna do everything the tean needs without one tiny shred of ego. He doesn't care if he scores a single point, and it's just we're so lucky to have him. And on a night where Durant at 35 is showing the fountain of youth. Don't forget about Al too at age 37, maybe not quite putting up the stats of Durant, but extremely impactful performance. Exactly. And that helped us get the win. And also to Joe, shout out to Merrimack Warriors, who will be playing Tuesday night for a chance at their first ever trip to the NCAA tournament. So
they beat Fairleigh Dickinson
Warriors
last year, right? Like they should have got, but they had the postseason ban.
Correct. Yes, they won the tournament.
This year they can make the tournament.
This is their first year they've been eligible, and they are in the conference finals, which they will get to host because Central Connecticut State got upset today by Wagner. So Merrimack they beat Lemoyne today, and they'll be hosting Wagner Tuesday night. Huge game in North Andover. Go support the Warriors if you are around and can. I'm sure. I don't think it'll be sold out, so you should be able to get in if you want to see some really high level basketball on the North Shore without paying too much money. go check it out. It should be a good time.
Hell yeah. So yeah, thanks to the callers for those voicemails. Again, if you want to leave voicemails, go to chuddyscorner.com. Bottom right-hand corner, you see a little microphone button. You click that. You can leave a voicemail. We check it pretty frequently. We like the voicemail sessions. It's always good to get the Chuddy heads involved in the program. So again, shout out to Joe and the nameless Chuddy head that called earlier.
Yeah, two great calls.
Two great calls. Yeah, we love that. So go ahead and give us, what do you have for around the NBA today? What do you got for us?
Well, I feel like we've had so much negative injury news lately. I want to give a little shine to some good injury news. Jalen Brunson went down about a week ago on a non-contact knee injury. It looked like it might have been really, really bad. He already made his return yesterday, played well, helped the Knicks to a huge win over the Magic. So obviously we're not Knicks fans, but we are fans of NBA players being able to play. So happy to see him back. Good for them. Another crazy game last night for an injured team. The Cavaliers pulled out a win over the Karl-Anthony Towns-less Timberwolves. Brutal officiating game. Scott Foster, the crew chief. Go figure. It kind of boiled over with Rudy Gobert fouling out and then getting hit immediately with a technical foul after he made the money sign at the refs. At the time, the T-Wolves were up by 1 point with, I think, 23 seconds left. So the technical free throw allowed the Cavs to tie the game and force overtime. And then the Cavs ultimately won in the extra session. No Gobert on the floor. So tough loss. And then Gobert kind of doubled down after the game and said, I know I'm going to get fined. I don't care. The refs are potentially involved in gambling. He basically said, I don't have the exact quotes, but he basically accused them of being on the take and saying that this game was like not on the level. So
have you ever seen, it's like a Netflix thing about Donaghy? Like Scott Foster was like his best friend. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
because he'll probably referee some more playoff games.
Yeah, seriously.
He was like best friends with him, and Donaghy's like, as soon as the news came, he just like blocked my number. It's just like, well, obviously he's going to do that, but also like, I don't know. Like if I turned out that you were point shaving, it'd be pretty hard for me to like sit here and be like, I had no idea. I don't. If you are, I don't know. But
yeah, just delete my number.
It would just be crazy for me to still keep my own credibility in that situation. So
that's true. It actually, and for the record, it wasn't Foster.
Of Gobert's last really famous press conference where he touched all the shit.
That's true.
Caused the bubble.
And for the record, it was not Foster who gave him the tech at the end. Foster had there was a lot of questionable calls down the stretch, but it wasn't Foster who ultimately did call the tech. So I don't know, but shady stuff. But do want to shout out Naz Reid, who we mentioned on the last show, would basically be the potential Towns. He'd have to replace a lot of what Towns did. He stepped up, had a career high 34 points off the bench for the Timberwolves, and had what was the game. Well, I mean, the block that saved the game in regulation allowed it to go to overtime. Obviously, the T-Wolves lost, but if that game is any sign, Naz Reid should do a pretty damn good job of filling in for Karl-Anthony Towns. So good to see big Naz Reid fans here on the show. Glad to see him get some shine there. A couple other things going on last night. We had the Wizards snapping their 16-game losing streak by defeating the Charlotte Hornets. You're probably wondering, why is that worth mentioning? Well, earlier this year, the Detroit Pistons set the record for one season losing streak with 28 games. The Wizards were at 16, and if you were looking at the schedule, looking ahead a little bit, they would have had a chance to match that 28-game losing streak. And the opponent in that game would have been none other than the Detroit Pistons. So we've been robbed of an epic toilet bowl for the ages. To have two
Kuzma tweet too, like no one wants to be that team.
Exactly. Yeah, it would have been almost too perfect. So pissed at the Hornets for allowing that to happen, because you look at the schedule. I'm not sure there are many other winnable games on there for the Wizards. We might have gotten that, and so to have. We've never seen a 28-game losing streak before in a single season. To have the chance to see two in one season, and with those circumstances playing each other for that game. And I think they currently both have 9 wins, tied for the worst team. Or maybe the Wizards now have 10 with their win. But either way, it would have been 9 wins against 9 wins potentially. Just, again, would have been a pretty cool moment for an otherwise meaningless game that we've now been robbed of. So thanks a lot, Hornets. Then elsewhere around the league, Oklahoma City had a great win last night, and one thing that I've enjoyed watching, that maybe people haven't seen on the Oklahoma City broadcast if you don't watch it, but after the game, whichever player gets the post-game interview on the Thunder broadcast, the co-stars will go around and stand behind him, and it'll usually be 2 or 3 players right behind the player getting interviewed, nodding along.
That was weird.
They do that every game, and they react to the interview like it's like a freestyle rap. They're saying like lines.
One-time thing. It seems so weird.
No, they do it a lot. It's actually pretty hilarious and cool to see like a young team having that team chemistry. But it was funny last night. They asked Shea, they're just like, "How are you so consistent?" He's just like, "Everything in my life is consistent." And the players in the background are like, "Oh."
Okay, I was wondering because it seems super weird. Okay,
it's pretty funny.
They do it all the time.
They do it every game, and it's always different guys. So it's just like hyping up their teammates. It's actually pretty cool, fun to see. And then the only other thing, the Bucks lost their second straight game out west. They lost to the Warriors the other night. Last night they lost to the Lakers in LA without LeBron. D'Angelo Russell went off for 44 points, his career high, including the game-winning basket. And then Spencer Dinwiddie stuffed the absolute shit out of Dame Lillard on his potential game-winning shot as time expired. Kind of a whatever thing. The only thing I want to attack this from 2 points, I'm going to say the thing that, every Celtics fan loves to be like, oh, well, nobody's talking shit about the Bucks once they lose 2 games to Western Conference, blah, 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 which is what a lot of people are thinking. I'm actually going to go the other way on this one. And I say, yeah, you know why? Because the Celtics are better than the fucking Bucks, and we're held to a higher standard. It's not surprising when these other teams like that, they lose because, they're just not as good. So it's not a big deal. The Celtics get overly analyzed and criticized like that because we are so friggin' good. We're on this historical pace.
That wears the crown, which we don't.
Exactly right. But we've earned these expectations. That's why we get, nitpicked so hard because we are that good. The Bucks, they're 8.5 games back of us for a reason. They got a lot of flaws. They got a lot of problems. So it is what it is.
All right. All right. So that's around the NBA. We have our next game. The Blazers on Monday. This is really going to test our mettle here. This back-to-back we have coming up. 10:30 start on Monday. The latest the NBA can start a game, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, the Blazers aren't that great of a team, but go ahead and tell us how many points is Banton going to score, because I saw he had 30 points the other night.
And he had another great game tonight as they won in overtime against the Raptors. He's been playing really, really well. So, yeah, obviously the Blazers are not very good. The Celtics are a lot better. But to me, the thing is, it feels like we've had so many games in a row that are against marquee opponents on national television, like some clear measuring stick games, this and that. This is the first time in a while where it feels like a genuine opportunity for a letdown. We got over that hump. We still have this 8.5 game lead. It's like, okay, chance to kind of take a deep breath. Now it's, Portland and Utah. Okay. Like if ever there was like a trap game, letdown spot, this would be it. I'm not saying I want that to happen, but like, I'll be interested to see if we can keep up this same level of focus and intensity against a clearly inferior opponent. So that's really all there to watch for. And honestly, like if we do let down and lose, I'll be kind of disappointed, but it will be hard to like really get too worked up
because I'm up that late.
Yes, but in terms of what to actually look for,
win or loss either way.
Anthony Simons, really good young player for the Blazers. Scoot Henderson is back in the lineup. He's had a really bad year, but it'll be good to see him if he can get anything going. They've got DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant's really good. Tamani Kamara, they've gotten some really good minutes out of him. So they've got some good players. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see Robert Williams. Well, I know we won't see Robert Williams. Yeah. I don't think we'll see Malcolm Brogdon because of injuries. So I think Delano Banton will be the only guy who has a chance at a revenge game, but it'll still be cool to see those guys. Hopefully the Celtics do show up, will be healthy, and we'll get a nice win. It will be back-to-back nights of Drew Carter and Eddie House. Getting weird out west for some Celtics after dark. So if nothing else, we have that to look forward to.
All right, well, we look forward to seeing everybody back here late Monday night or Tuesday morning for the Chuddy heads who have a regular sleep schedule. But for everyone else, again, Celtics get the 117-107 win over the Suns. We'll be back Monday night. Chuddy, good night. Good to see you. Take care.
Peace out, Chuddy heads.